Your father's treatment can wait. But my mom urgently needs new furniture for her apartment. My husband said, stealing the money I had saved for my father, and drove off to his mother's house. When he returned home, pleased with himself, he froze in horror, seeing, hello, dear listeners, you're on Hidden Revenge Stories. Today we'll immerse ourselves in a dramatic story about the fight for a loved one's life, where love and devotion clashed with selfishness and betrayal. Imagine a woman who is ready to sacrifice everything to save her father, and a husband whose loyalty turns out to be subservient to someone else's interests. This is a story of how the craving for comfort can destroy a family, and how determination and justice can bring back hope. Make yourselves comfortable. An emotional plot awaits you. Enjoy listening and stay healthy. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and be sure to hit like so you don't miss new stories. The cardiac surgeon's office on the 7th floor of the regional hospital smelled of antiseptic and hopelessness. I sat across from Dr. Peterson, a man in his 50s with tired eyes, who had just uttered words that made my world crumble. Ms. Riley, your father needs urgent aortocoronary bypass surgery. He has critical ischemic heart disease. In recent months, he had felt shortness of breath and weakness, but he endured it, like many men of his generation. Dad sat next to me on a hard chair, squeezing my hand with his calloused fingers. Michael Miller, a former factory fitter, a man who spent his life repairing other people's machines and was used to enduring pain. Without surgery, he has 4 to 5 months left. The doctor continued. How much does it cost? I asked, trying to keep my voice from trembling. In our hospital, the surgery can be done for free, but there's a waiting list of 1.5 years. In private clinics, it's between $80 and $100. I felt the world around me slow down. $80 minimum. Where would I as sales manager for building materials, with a salary of $4,500, get that kind of money? Dad, we'll figure everything out, I said firmly, looking into his frightened eyes. We'll get the surgery done at the best clinic. Dr. Peterson looked at me with sympathy. Girl, be realistic. Maybe you should get on the waiting list, and we'll see. No, I cut him off. We have 5 months. That's enough. At home, I immediately sat down to calculate. A notebook, a calculator, a pen, and the planning of the operation to save my father began. My salary, Tim's salary as an engineer, $6. Our small savings, $9. Even if we didn't spend a dime on food, we could only get a maximum of $60 in 5 months. We were short by at least $20. Barb, but you understand this is very difficult, my husband cautiously said, looking over my shoulder at my calculations. Maybe we should still try through public health care? Tim, my father is 64 years old. He has worked his whole life, paid taxes, never asked anyone for anything. I will not let him die on a waiting list. Tim sighed, but nodded. Okay, what are we going to do? I already knew. In our area there was an adult education center looking for a bookkeeping instructor 3 times a week in the evenings. $1 a month. Plus, I could take on additional orders for accounting services for small businesses. Another $1.500 minus $2.000. So, here's the plan, I said, putting down my pen. I'm getting a second job. We're going on strict economy. No cafes, no theaters, no new clothes. We only buy groceries on sale. Save as much as possible on utilities. What about our vacation in Florida? We've already booked it. We're canceling it. Tim, my father's life is at stake. My husband was silent for a moment, then hugged me. Okay, we'll manage. And we began. I got a job at the education center, where on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays I explained to middle-aged women how to properly manage a family budget and calculate taxes. Plus, I found 2 clients for accounting services, a hair salon and a small auto parts store. Our life turned into a military campaign against poverty. Instead of meat, we bought discounted chicken legs. Instead of store-bought bread, I baked it at home in a bread machine. The savings amounted to $50 a month. We disconnected all paid channels, switched to the cheapest internet plan. We even bought shampoo in large, discounted packages. Every evening I opened a special notebook and wrote down all income and expenses. $1 from the part-time job, $1.500 from additional orders, salary, leftovers from savings. By the end of the first month, I managed to save $12, more than I expected. Wow, Tim said, surprised, looking into my notebook. You're doing pretty well. If it continues like this, we'll have the necessary amount in 5 months. We will, I answered confidently. We definitely will. I didn't tell Dad anything about the money. He was already tormented by guilt, constantly repeating that he didn't want to be a burden. I came up with a story about insurance that would cover most of the expenses. Dad, don't worry. I have corporate medical insurance. It covers operations for relatives. Barb, are you sure you're not lying? He doubted. Doesn't sound like our healthcare. Dad, you know I never lie to you. It was a white lie. And my father believed it. In the second month, Tim joined in the economizing. He sold his game console and several discs, cancelled his gym memberships, and switched from driving to public transport. We became a real team. Look, he joyfully showed me another unexpected find. I found a website online where you can save on medications. Instead of expensive ones, we buy generics. Same effectiveness, 3 times less expensive. Good job. I hugged him. See, we're doing it. We really were. By the end of the second month, we already had $24 in the account. The pace was excellent, and I felt the first glimmer of confidence in 2 months. And then Susan arrived. My mother-in-law showed up at our place on Saturday morning, just as I was getting ready for my classes. A tall, stately woman of 58. A former math teacher. She was used to being obeyed and submitted to. Timmy, son, I have a problem, she began immediately, without even greeting me. Such terrible things are happening at my house. It's just awful. What happened, Mom? Tim asked, alarmed. Everything's falling apart. The roof in the bathroom is leaking. The upstairs neighbors flooded me. Now the wallpaper's peeling off. The tile is cracked. And the refrigerator broke down yesterday. It's leaking and not freezing. I don't know what to do anymore. I stood in the hallway with my bag in my hands and listened to her lament. Of course, something breaks down for Susan just when every penny counts for us. Mom, how much will the repairs cost? Tim asked cautiously. Oh, I don't know, son. The contractors say at least $15 for everything. And a good refrigerator is about $7. Where am I going to get that kind of money with my pension? She said this, glancing at me. I understood perfectly what she was hinting at. Listen, Susan, I intervened. Can't the repairs be done partially? Only the most necessary things. Barb, my mother-in-law exclaimed indignantly. How partially? Am I supposed to live in ruins? Mom, calm down. Tim tried to smooth things over. We'll figure something out. What are you going to figure out? Susan sneered. You don't have any money. Your wife works 2 jobs. Bakes bread at home. That's when I felt my patience running out. Susan, I bake bread not out of poverty, but because homemade bread is tastier and healthier. Oh, of course, she drawled. And Timmy told me how you're economizing on everything. You even stopped going to the theater. So, my husband had been complaining to her about our economizing. I felt the first sting of irritation. We're economizing temporarily because we're saving money for my father's surgery. Ah, yes, Tim told me. Susan nodded with an understanding look. Of course, of course. A sick father is a sacred thing. But it just seems strange somehow. What exactly is strange? Well, the fact that you're saving money for an operation. And I'm living with a leaking roof. After all, family isn't just your parents. But mine too. I felt blood rush to my face. Was this woman really comparing a bathroom renovation to heart surgery? Susan, there should be no comparison here. My father has heart problems. He needs urgent surgery. Oh, yes, yes. My mother-in-law waved her hand. And the fact that I might catch a cold from the dampness and get sick too. That doesn't count. Tim remained silent as if spellbound. And that irritated me the most. I have to go to work, I said. Good luck with the repairs. Barb, don't be angry. My husband pleaded as I was already at the door. Mom is just worried. All day at my classes. I couldn't concentrate. My mother-in-law's words kept spinning in my head. Family isn't just your parents. But mine too. What did she mean? Was she really thinking that we should spend the money saved for the operation on her repairs? In the evening, when I returned home, Tim met me with a guilty look. Barb, don't be angry. Mom is just upset. She really has problems at home. Tim, everyone has problems. My father has a heart problem. Your mom has a renovation problem. What do you think is more important? Of course, your dad's health is more important. He quickly agreed. I understand that. I hoped so. But I could tell from his face that the topic wasn't closed yet. Susan knew how to pressure her son. And this conversation was just the beginning. The following week, my mother-in-law attacked with renewed vigor. Every day Tim received messages from her with photos of the destruction in her apartment. First, a fallen tile, then spots on the ceiling, then a broken cabinet door. Look how mom lives. He showed me another photo. It's really hard for her. Tim, your mom gets a decent pension. Plus she has savings. Let her take out a loan if she needs repairs. She says it's hard to get a loan at her age. Nonsense. Retirees get loans. She has a stable income. But Tim was no longer listening. I saw him gradually falling under his mother's influence. And that scared me. The next 2 weeks passed relatively calmly. We continued to save money. I continued my courses in additional accounting. In the 3rd month, another client was added, the owner of a small cafe, who asked me to do his accounting. And another $2 a month. By the end of the 3rd month, we already had $40. Exactly half of the required amount. See, it's all working out, I rejoiced, showing Tim the balance in the account. 2 more months and we can do the surgery. Yes, great, he agreed, but I sensed some insincerity in his voice. Something wrong? No, everything's fine. Mom just called again. Says her wiring is acting up now too. Afraid there might be a fire. I sighed. Susan didn't give up, and then the 4th month came. And everything changed. Firstly, Dad got a little worse. His shortness of breath intensified. Small edema appeared on his legs. Dr. Peterson said it was advisable not to postpone the surgery. Ms. Riley, as soon as you collect the money, we'll admit him immediately. The condition is stable, but it's better not to risk it. Secondly, Tim started acting strangely, sometimes silent and thoughtful, then suddenly starting conversations about how unfair the world is and why some people are lucky and others are not. What are you talking about? I didn't understand. Oh, just thinking. Your dad got sick, but you have the opportunity to raise money for the operation. And my mom has been raising me alone all her life. And now she's living in ruins in her old age. Tim, your mom lives in an ordinary apartment that needs cosmetic repairs. And my father has a sick heart. I'm not comparing, he said hastily, just thinking out loud, but I already understood that he was indeed comparing. And that thought frightened me. The turning point came on a typical Thursday evening. I returned from classes around 9 o'clock and heard Tim talking on the phone. He was standing on the balcony, thinking I couldn't hear him. But his words reached the kitchen. Mom, I understand it's hard for you. Yes, of course. You're right. No, Barb is very stubborn. It's hard to reason with her. I froze at the balcony door, trying to catch every word. Listen, Mom, what do you think? Can't we explain to Barb that family isn't just her parents, but ours too? Something was answered on the other end. And Tim continued, well, yes, of course. The operation can be done later. But the repairs can't wait. I felt a chill run down my spine. Mom, you're right. We need to explain to Barb that parents are more important than in-laws. You raised me alone all your life. And then it hit me. Susan wasn't just complaining about her problems. She was deliberately turning her son against me, trying to win him over to her side. And he was listening to her. Okay, Mom, I'll try to talk to her. Tim finished the conversation. I quietly went into the bedroom and pretended to change. My heart was pounding like crazy. So, while I'm working 2 jobs, saving on everything to save my father, my own husband is discussing with his mother how to take that money from me. Hey, how were classes? Tim asked, coming into the bedroom. Normal, I replied, trying to keep my voice sounding ordinary. He sat on the bed next to me. Listen, Barb, let's talk seriously. About what? Well, about our plans. Maybe we should reconsider our priorities? What priorities exactly? He shifted, then blurted out. Mom is really in a difficult situation. And your father's operation can be done through public health care. There it was. He had decided. Tim, do you understand what you're saying? My father might not live to see the waiting list. Well, why won't he live right away? The doctors didn't say everything was critical right now. They did. Dr. Peterson said he had 4 to 5 months without surgery. Maybe he's overprotective? Doctors like to scare people into paying more. I looked at my husband and didn't recognize him. When did he turn into such a cynical person? Tim, I will not spend money intended to save my father on your mother's repairs. But she's not a stranger. She's your mother-in-law. Essentially your mother too. No, Tim, my mom died 5 years ago. I only have my dad. And I won't abandon him. We had our first fight in 4 years of marriage. Tim slammed the door and went to his mother's to sleep. And I sat on the bed, realizing that a serious conflict was brewing. But I still hoped that common sense would prevail. That my husband would come to his senses and remember who was more important to him, his mother or his wife. A human life or an apartment renovation. How wrong I was. In the morning, Tim returned home with a bouquet of chrysanthemums and guilty eyes. I was just getting ready for work and didn't even look at the flowers. Sorry, Barb, I was wrong. Of course, your dad's health is more important than anything else. Okay, I replied curtly, zipping up my jacket. You're not mad? I am, but I don't have time to sort out our relationship right now. I have a goal to raise money, and I will achieve it. At work, an unexpected piece of news awaited me. Our director, Mr. Adams, called me into his office. Ms. Riley, I have a proposal for you. A friend of mine is opening a private cardiac surgery clinic. A very serious project, modern equipment, doctors from Germany and Israel. I became wary. How did he know about my father's problems? You see, I overheard a conversation in the smoking area. How you're raising money for the operation. I thought it might be interesting. What kind of clinic? It's called New Heart. It just opened, but it's already performing complex surgeries. I can give you the contact if you want. In the evening, I called this clinic. I was connected to the head of the cardiac surgery department. Dr. Miller, in your father's case, we can operate in a month and a half. He said after I described my father's condition. We have all the capabilities for such operations. And how much will it cost? $90 full cost. You can make an upfront payment of $60 and pay the remaining $30 on the day of the operation. $90 minus $10 more than in other clinics. But if they could operate in a month and a half, instead of waiting until the very end. Doctor, can I come for a consultation with my father? Of course. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. would that suit you? I agreed. At home, I told Tim about the conversation with the doctor. Are you out of your mind? He exclaimed. $90. Where will we get another $10? I'll take out a loan. What loan? At what interest rate? We'll be paying it off for the rest of our lives. Tim, my father's life is at stake. And besides, a loan at 12% annual interest. I've already checked. Barb, come to your senses. We're already living like paupers. Economizing on everything. And now to take out another loan. But I had already made up my mind. The next day, Dad and I went to the New Heart Clinic. A modern building in the city center. Expensive renovations. Friendly staff. Dr. Miller, a man in his 40s with confident manners, examined Dad and reviewed all the test results. Surgery is necessary, and the sooner the better. He said, but I don't have the full amount yet. I admitted, no problem, you can make an upfront payment of $60 and pay the remaining $30 on the day of the operation. Dad was silent all the way home. Only when we got into the apartment, he quietly said, Barb, maybe we shouldn't spend so much money? I don't want you to get into debt because of me. Dad, don't talk nonsense. You are more precious to me than any money. I went to the bank the next day. The loan officer, a young woman with a sickly sweet smile, quickly processed all the documents. $10 at 12.5% annual interest. Monthly payment $920. $900 a month. That's a fifth of my salary. But what to do? Process it, I said. Now I had exactly $90. $50 in savings plus $10 loan plus $30 that still needed to be saved in a month and a half. It was possible to make the down payment and schedule the surgery. But it was at this moment that Susan launched an open offensive. On Saturday morning, she appeared at our place again. But this time not alone, but with some man in work clothes. Timmy, meet Mark, the contractor. He looked at my apartment and says it's very serious. Mark, a man in his 50s with intelligent eyes, shook his head. Well, what can I tell you? Young man, your mother has an emergency situation there. The wiring is old and sparking. A short circuit can happen at any moment. Mold has started from the leak, which is very harmful to health. See, son, Susan whimpered, I told you everything was bad for me. Mark says, you urgently need to redo everything. Otherwise there could be a fire. I listened to this performance and realized that my mother-in-law decided to play on pity through an independent expert. And how much will the repairs cost? Tim asked. Well, to do everything as it should be. Mark drawled. $12,500. You need to replace the wiring, plumbing, tiles, wallpaper, plus new furniture. Another $1. $13,500. More than a third of our savings. Mom, that's a lot of money. Tim said, bewildered. Son, I'm not asking for everything at once. Maybe at least the wiring and plumbing? The most necessary things. $11,500. I saw Tim wavering. On the one hand, he understood that the money was for his father's operation. On the other hand, his mother skillfully pressured him with the threat of fire. Tim, I intervened. Let's discuss this later. We have guests now. Oh, Barb, Susan smiled sweetly. I'm not a stranger. What secrets are there? We're family. Family discusses financial matters without outsiders. I replied coldly, blatantly looking at Mark. Yes, I understand. I understand. He fussed. I'll go. And you think about it. Just don't delay the wiring. It's really dangerous. When Mark left, Susan immediately went on the attack. Barb, I understand you have your plans with this operation. But think logically. Your father is already old, and I still have to live and live. And besides, Timmy is my only son. He can't abandon his mother in trouble. Susan, my father is sick. He needs an operation to survive. And I need repairs so I don't burn alive. My mother-in-law dramatically exclaimed. What's more important? Mom, calm down. Tim pleaded. We'll figure something out. What are you going to figure out? My mother-in-law feigned despair. You only have a little money saved up. Stop. How does she know how much we've saved? Tim, I asked quietly. Did you tell Mom about our savings? My husband blushed. Well, I didn't know it was a secret. So, he reports all our financial affairs to his mother. I felt anger bubbling up inside me. Okay, Susan, I have to go. I have classes. Go on, dear, my mother-in-law generously allowed. Timmy and I will figure out how to solve my problems here. At my classes, I couldn't concentrate. My thoughts revolved around the morning conversation. Susan felt that the money was almost collected. And she was increasing the pressure. And Tim? He was clearly leaning towards her side. When I returned home, my husband wasn't there. A note on the table. Went to Mom's. Helping with documents at the housing office. Will be back late. Documents at the housing office. For what purpose? The answer came the next day. Tim admitted that he was helping his mother apply for a leak certificate for the insurance company. If the insurance company acknowledges the damage, they'll compensate for part of the repairs. He explained. And how much will they compensate? Well, about $3 at most. $3 out of $35. A drop in the ocean. Meanwhile, I had made an upfront payment to the clinic of $60. I still needed to save $30 in a month and a half. Quite realistic at our pace. But then Dad's condition worsened again. He became sluggish, constantly tired, shortness of breath appeared even with slight exertion. Barb, maybe I should go to the doctor? He asked one evening. Of course, Dad, we'll go tomorrow. Dr. Peterson was disturbed by the examination results. Ms. Riley, your father has begun decompensation. His heart can't handle the load. The surgery needs to be done more urgently. How much more urgently? Within 3 to 4 weeks. A month at most. A month. And I have surgery scheduled at New Heart Clinic. Just over a month from now. Almost on time. Okay, doctor. We've already arranged with the private clinic for next month. Excellent. But don't delay any longer. At home, I told Tim about the conversation with the doctor. So, the surgery is in a month. Yes, the down payment has been made. The date is almost set. Tim was silent for a moment. Then suddenly asked, what if we postpone it for another month? Maybe we'll find cheaper options? I couldn't believe my ears. Are you out of your mind? The doctor said, a month at most. But a month is a month. There's a small margin. Tim, do you understand what you're saying? My father's life is at stake. I understand. Just thinking. Maybe we should look for other options. Since the surgery is so expensive? There it was. He was already openly suggesting postponing the surgery. What other options are you waiting for? Well, maybe the waiting list at the state hospital will move faster. Tim, the waiting list there is a year and a half. Dad won't live that long. How do you know? Doctors might exaggerate. I looked at my husband and realized that he was willing to risk my father's life for his mother's renovation. That's it. The conversation is over. The surgery will be in a month. As planned. Barb, please listen. No, you listen. My father is 64 years old. He has worked his whole life. Never asked anyone for anything. And I won't let him die because your mother wants new wallpaper. We had a serious fight. Tim slammed the door and left for his mother's again. And I was left alone, wondering what to do. The surgery was in a week. And there was no money. My first impulse was to rush to Susan and demand the money back. But I knew she had already spent everything. And besides, could purchased furniture be returned? The second option was to ask all acquaintances for a loan. But who would give me $30? No one had that kind of money. I sat in the kitchen, crying from helplessness, from despair, from the realization that my father could die because of his own son-in-law's betrayal. And then I remembered Christine. Christine worked with me in the next department. We had been friends for several years. But we weren't close. I only knew that she was married to a police officer. I dialed her number. Chris. Hi. Sorry to call so late. Hi, Barb. What happened? You sound upset. Chris. I need help. Very serious help. What kind? I told her the whole story about my father's illness. About the savings. About how my husband stole the money and gave it to his mother. Are you serious? Christine gasped. He stole $80? Seriously? And the surgery is in a week. And there's nothing to pay with? Barb, this is a criminal case. Theft on a particularly large scale. But he's my husband. Can a husband even be sued for theft? He can. Marriage does not give the right to steal money from a spouse. Listen, do you want my husband? Officer Lewis. To talk to him? Lewis. Christine's husband. A police captain. An honest man whom I'd met a couple of times at company parties. Will he agree? Of course. He can't stand it when men betray their families. I'll call him now. 10 minutes later, Christine called back. Lewis said it's a serious matter. Formally, this is grand larceny. Article 158 of the Criminal Code. Up to 10 years in prison. 10 years in prison? And I thought a husband couldn't be prosecuted for stealing money. But Lewis can talk to your husband unofficially. Explain the legal consequences. Maybe he'll get scared and return the money. Will he agree? He already has. Says he'll come tomorrow morning and have a talk with your Tim. Chris, thank you. You're simply saving me. Don't thank me prematurely. First, let's see what happens. I didn't sleep all night. I planned for the next day. Officer Lewis would arrive at 10 a.m. Tim should be home by then. I'll text him that we need to talk urgently. At 9 a.m., I sent my husband a message. Come home by 10 o'clock. We need to resolve the money issue. He replied, okay, we'll talk. At 9:30, I called the clinic and clarified the possibility of postponing the surgery. We can postpone it for a maximum of 1 week. The nurse warned. We cannot wait longer due to the patient's condition. A week. 7 days to shake the money out of my husband. Exactly at 10 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Officer Lewis. A man in his 40s, of medium height, but with a very serious face. Barb. Hello. Christine told me about the situation. Hello, Officer Lewis. Come in. Where's your husband? Should be here any minute now. Officer Lewis went into the living room and sat in an armchair. Barb, I want you to understand. I'm here unofficially, as a family friend, but what your husband did is a serious crime. And what's the penalty for that? Grand larceny, Article 158. Part 4. From 5 to 10 years of imprisonment. 10 years? Tim could go to jail for 10 years? But if he voluntarily returns the money, it will be considered active repentance. The term can be reduced or a suspended sentence given. At that moment, the intercom rang. Tim, I'll open it, Officer Lewis said. Let him come in. A minute later, my husband entered the door, saw the unfamiliar man in the living room, and was bewildered. Barb, who is this? Tim, meet Officer Lewis, captain of the police, I said. Tim's face changed. He turned pale and began to look around as if searching for an exit. Please sit down, Mr. Davies, Officer Lewis said calmly. We need to talk. Talk about what? My husband stammered. About how you withdrew $80 from your wife's account the day before yesterday and spent it without her consent. But we're married. It's joint money. Incorrect. The money was in your wife's personal account. She earned it, saved it, took out loans. By law, it's her personal property. Officer Lewis took out a notebook and slowly opened it. Theft of funds in the amount of $80 is classified as grand larceny. Article 158 of the Criminal Code. Part 4. What's the penalty? Tim whispered. From 5 to 10 years of imprisonment. My husband collapsed into the armchair. But I didn't know. Didn't know what? That taking other people's money without permission is theft. I thought we were family. Family does not exempt you from criminal liability. Moreover, theft from close relatives is considered an aggravating circumstance. Tim sat white as a sheet. What do I need to do to avoid punishment? Completely compensate the damage and do it quickly. How quickly? Officer Lewis looked at his watch. You have 1 hour to return the money. If in an hour $80 is not in your wife's account, I will file a report with the prosecutor's office. But I don't have that kind of money. Where is the money you stole? I gave it to my mom. I lent it to her. Then go to your mom and get it back by any means necessary. But she's already spent it. She bought furniture. Your problems. Sell the furniture. Take out a loan. But return the money. Officer Lewis stood up. Mr. Davies. Exactly 1 hour. It's 11:05 a.m. At 12:05 p.m. I expect the money in the account. If I don't make it, then tomorrow morning investigators will be looking for you. Arrest warrants will be issued. Tim jumped up and rushed to the door. Barb, give me the car keys. Do you have your own? It's in the shop, please. I threw him the keys. He dashed out of the apartment like he'd been scalded. Officer Lewis, will you really file a report if he doesn't return the money? Absolutely. Such cases cannot go unpunished. The hours stretched on endlessly. I checked my online banking balance every 5 minutes. 0, 0, 0. Officer Lewis sat calmly in the armchair, reading the news on his phone. Are such cases common? I asked. More common than we'd like. Husbands steal from wives, wives from husbands. Usually, they don't dare to take large sums. But your case is special. Special. Stealing is particularly cynical. At 11:30, Tim called me. Barb, Mom says the furniture can't be returned. The store refuses to take it back. Your problems. Sell it, pawn it, but return the money. But how can I force Mom to sell new furniture? And how could you steal money for my father's surgery? Barb, help me. Talk to the police officer. Let him give me more time. No, an hour is plenty. In an hour, you can get a loan or sell something valuable. Sell what? Mom doesn't have anything valuable. Then let her sell the furniture. I hung up. At 12:03, the doorbell rang. Tim burst in, his face red. Officer Lewis, please, give me more time. Time's up. Where's the money? Mom can't return it. She spent everything. Your mom can take out a loan. They won't give her one. Age. Susan is 58 years old. They should give her a loan. They say her income is too low. Then you take out a loan. They won't give me one either. I already have loans. Officer Lewis stood up. Mr. Davies, you have exhausted the allotted time. Tomorrow morning I'm filing a report. Wait, Tim cried. I'll return everything. I swear. When? In a week. 2 at most. Your wife doesn't have 2 weeks. Her father needs surgery next week. But I can't get $80 in an hour. You could spend it in an hour. You can return it in an hour. Tim paced the room like a caged animal. That's it. I'm going to Mom's. I'll make her find the money at any cost. He rushed out of the apartment again. Half an hour later, he called. Barb, Mom agreed to sell part of the furniture. Says we can get $14. That's not $80, but at least something. Maybe the officer will agree to a partial payment? I looked at Officer Lewis. He shook his head. No, Tim, either all or nothing. But where do I get the remaining $40? Your problem. At 2 p.m., Tim arrived with his mother. Susan was hysterical. Barb, how could you set the police on us? We're family. Susan, you spent money meant for my father's surgery. But Timmy gave it to me. I didn't know it was theft. Not theft, but helping a dear mother. Tim interjected. Officer Lewis sighed tiredly. Stop arguing. If you have the money, return it. If not, tomorrow it's a criminal case. But we can't get $80 in a day. Susan wailed. You managed to spend it in a day. Well, all right. My mother-in-law unexpectedly agreed. I'll return the money, but not all at once. In installments. When? Officer Lewis asked. Within a year. $7 a month. This woman's father doesn't have a year. And what? He's dying next week? He might die. Without surgery. Susan thought for a moment. Then suddenly asked. What if I find the money right now? Right now? All $80. The police officer won't file a report? I won't. Officer Lewis said firmly. Okay, Timmy, let's go. They disappeared. And I didn't understand where Susan could get $80 from. The answer came an hour later. Tim called. Barb, Mom sold the dacha. Found buyers who are ready to pay cash immediately. The dacha. I forgot that my mother-in-law had a dacha outside the city. How much did she sell it for? $85. She even made a little profit. At 4 p.m., the money was in my account. Exactly $80. Officer Lewis checked the balance and nodded. Everything is in order. Case closed. Officer Lewis, thank you so much. You saved my father's life. You're welcome. Justice must prevail. Tim returned home, devastated. Well, that's enough, he said. Mom sold the dacha. Now she has nowhere to go in the summer. But my father will be alive. And I'm left without a wife and practically without a mother. She said she didn't want to see me anymore. Your choice. Tim, you chose furniture over a human life. I wanted to help Mom. At the expense of my father. The surgery was successful. Dad spent 3 days in intensive care. Then he was transferred to a regular ward. The doctors said everything went perfectly. Barb, thank you, he whispered, holding my hand. I will live now. You will. Dad? You definitely will. Tim and I divorced a month later. He didn't resist, understanding that after such a betrayal, there was no turning back. Maybe we should try to reconcile, he asked at the registrar's office. No, Tim, trust cannot be restored, but I returned the money under threat of prison. That's not voluntary remorse. He moved in with his mother, who indeed didn't speak to him for a month, but then forgave him. What else could I do? I was left alone in our apartment. Dad recovered, returned to normal life. I still have to pay off the loan, but it's a small price for a life saved. I am still endlessly grateful to Christine and Officer Lewis. They saved not only my father, but also my faith in justice. 6 months have passed now. Dad feels great. Doctors say the surgery gave him another 15 years of life. I continue to work, pay off the loan, build a new life. Tim sometimes calls, trying to restore relations, but every time I remember his words, your father's treatment can wait. But my mom urgently needs new furniture for her apartment, and I realize that it's impossible to live with such a person. Susan got her furniture, but lost her dacha and effectively her son. He lives with her, but their relationship is ruined forever. She blames him for having to sell the dacha. He blames her for losing his wife. And I realized, the main thing is that justice exists. Sometimes you have to fight for it. Sometimes it comes on its own. But it always comes. And I also realized that family is not those who are connected to you by blood or a stamp in your passport. Family is those who are ready to help in a difficult moment. Not to betray. Not to put their own interests above your problems. Christine and Officer Lewis turned out to be closer to me than my own husband. They helped when it was needed, asking for nothing in return. And Tim showed his true colors. It turned out that all these 4 years I lived with a man who, at a critical moment, would choose his mother's furniture over his father-in-law's life. Do I regret the divorce? No, not for a second. Do I regret the years spent? Also no. They taught me to distinguish real people from fake ones. Is it scary to start life over at 30? Of course, but it's better to be alone than to live with a traitor. Dad says I'll meet a good man yet. Maybe, maybe not. But now I know for sure. Better loneliness than the company of a person for whom furniture is more important than life. And when I sometimes get sad, I remember Tim's face at that moment when he saw me with Officer Lewis. That horror in his eyes, that understanding that the game is over. That betrayal will have to be answered for. Justice triumphed, and that is worth a lot.